the thing to keep in mind here is that, Larson's palette's pretty chromatic, and it's important to think about that. He's not, I don't even think he has a black on the palette. He has a very extensive palette. I think he has a bigger palette than I do. So if you want, at the beginning, you can totally just put some marks on there to get the general composition. Whatever you need to do. I recommend doing this, also seeing what happens when you just draw right on the canvas. And if the hope is to be able to, get in any situation so that you can do all of these things. The worst thing is when we just don't know how to draw and we need specific tools to figure everything out. I think it's a very limiting way to teach anyone anything. Of course, it's nice to have a specific brush or tool or whatever. So anyway, you know what I'm talking about. We talk about this all the time. The thing is, you should be able to pick up any charcoal at any moment and make some magic with it, and that has to do with the ability. Max Ginsburg was here a couple weeks ago, and I was showing him these goofy little drawings that I was doing for Scarlet, and he said something. He was like, "Those are beautiful drawings," and he's like, "I could tell that you know how to draw just from looking at it," and it was like a silly drawing of like a banana. And he's like, you can just tell that because there's thought in all of that. And that's really what we're looking to achieve here, is not to get into specific moments. And again, I say this because you're hearing just my thoughts of how I feel like, we should become powerful enough to do whatever you want and not let something hold you back. So I'm not going to put black out. I recommend you don't as well. And I'm just going to build a little bit of a palette here. And then I will use that. And then if I need to, I'll just add some more colors. But, a lot of this is going to be interpretation. So unless you have the ability to ask him, which you probably could email him, and he's a super nice guy, and he may respond, you're going to have to just basically take and interpret. And I think somewhere in the beautiful interpretation side of it, I'm going to use a flat 9100 long Legion number 6. And that's going to make it's kind of between soft and stiff. It's not like, I can't believe people are painting with sable brushes that just... sables are more for detail. They always kind of were. And, if you go towards that, not you, but anybody, you're going to be, you're not going to pick up any paint because it's like a floppy end to it. So keep that in mind. Sorry. Keep that in mind. The tools that you are working with are going to have some say in what you're doing. All right, I can't find my yellow ochre, and I'm not going to go search for it because I'm kind of locked in here, and I'm just going to make it happen with what I got. I'm going to do raw sienna instead, and I wonder if that's the color that he used. Like, to me, this is kind of, I think when the magic happens, either you're lazy, like me sometimes, or don't want to get up and just say, could I solve it a different way? I think it's a creative way to kind of problem solve instead of, again, having to use always the same tools. Perhaps that's what somebody wants. We don't need to kind of argue over what that is, but it's just a way that I think about it, or sometimes I'm just like, I don't care, I'm just going to solve it with something else, and there could be something kind of serendipitous about that. All right, so I think just a touch more yellow in there. And I'm going to just begin to add oil, because I added oil into my cup. I think you can see it down there. And I'm just going to loosen up the paint a little bit. And then I'm going to just get in here and put a color down. Now, to me, that is soupy. So I like paint to be a little bit more dense and thick. And this is just a matter of preference. And this is, someone had asked about my texture in my work, and when I study the surface of paintings, I was just doing it. I was looking at a Pizarro at the RISD Museum. They were not adding, I don't think, a ton of oil. There's a thickness to their paint, and that's what I like. There's a study of the surface as well as the just getting what it is. They're much deeper, I think, in their pursuit of. Just gotta grab some paper towels. In their pursuit of texture and getting a feeling, I think it's what's missing a lot of work I see. All right, let's get a little bit of green in there. Sorry. All right, and I think I may need some blacks now that a black, at least one, now that I see it, to be able to get some of this. So I'm just going to put it on, even though I said I'm not gonna. I'm going to see if this may help. And then let me just get a little bit of ultramarine blue on here, which of course I can't find. So I'm just going to put cobalt. And maybe this is going to... Cobalt and ivory black are actually very similar to ultramarine blue. Cobalt is like the same color family, which is kind of crazy. All right, I'm going to just grab this, and I'm going to pull it in, and I'm going to grab a little bit of brown because I'm going to modulate the value, but I want to keep it in the kind of green family to get this in here, right there, right? So it kind of has an orange feel to it, but I'm slapping it into what's already there, right? Slapping it, mixing it. All right, and then go back up in here, and sometimes if you feel like you kind of nailed the color, I'm going to then pull this down. All right, and this is the beauty of doing these, in my opinion. Now this is going to come over a little bit more because of it, is when you're doing this, and you're beginning to kind of problem solve, you may have a different idea of like mixtures and, would you have grabbed burnt umber and cad green for that mixture? I don't know. Maybe, but maybe not. But now you may be, like you may even have just a muscle memory of doing it to then now grab into. All right, there we go. Now there's a purple. There's a color called pale violet, which I do like by Harding, but you can actually achieve that yourself. And this kind of color scheme down here. Now, I'm going to be careful not to just take it right out of a tube, but I am going to get that piece of data in early. I move this drawing over. Again, I don't want to get too caught up in having to make it exact. There's plenty of takeaway from anything, even if you nail it or not, that, even just having gone through it, grueling as it is, that you can take away the idea that you're trying to nail it, and then now just say, there's something I can take away from this. There's a violet. Pull that down. All right. All right, let's see about this. Grab the red, and then I'm going to grab the alizarin permanent because it seems like a nice dark over here. But can I don't recommend anyone paint the way that I do anyway, the way that I'm painting with a video camera in front of me. But that is going to affect the way that this comes out. Not making up excuses, I don't particularly care. But there's just a way in which I don't generally paint around something when I'm in my studio, but I do when I'm shooting a video. Wonder if that's helped to loosen me. Probably has. All right, so let's get titanium white. Just slap it on there. There we go. And then from here, I'm going to pull it down. That's going to correct my drawing. So, the thing I always tested as well was what happens if I did paint this kind of one piece at a time. you know? And again, in my studio, I always played with all these ideas. I just heard a whole list of them from my teacher, Paul Olson, who I just gave a demo in his class. And then I kind of got to hear him teach. And then I thought, oh, that's why some of the ideas are stuck in my head, for better or worse. And sometimes I think that students think that that's the truth, and then they can't break out of the idea. And I think for me, what happened, here we go, lighter. What happened for me was that I went to all these different schools, and instead of challenging them, I just listened. And then I began to kind of go back in my studio and then break the concepts down. And what that did was it made it so that I found the meaning in what they were saying, and I found that there was just a ton of contradiction, but they had reasons why they were saying it, and they didn't always say the why. And I found that to be the trickiest thing. And then as I began to kind of pull back the curtain of the why and find out there was a whole lineage of reasoning behind it. And I encourage everyone to do the same, to don't just take everything for the word. It should always be tested, and it doesn't have to be openly tested. It's you in your studio working it out, the concept. Does that work? And everyone does things differently. Even people in the same school, like at Lime Academy, we all are slightly different from one another. It's the beauty of it. And you begin to just see that there's a lot of thought that has to go into all of this. There we go. I got to loosen this up. All right. But look at that's almost like a yellow ochre out of a tube. But I don't have it, so I'm having to force myself to a bit more chromatic yellow ochre. That pretty high chroma, right? So let's grab a little black, see what it does. It pulls a green. I need to balance it, so I'm going to go. I need to make it darker. See that green right there? Do I want that green? Well, let's get it in. Not quite sure yet. Pull that down, pull this over, and then now it feels like it shifts in hue. So, beautiful colors always in Jeff's work. He's very, I don't know if you'd call it a spectral painter. I think someone said that once, or maybe he calls himself that. But there really is just a beauty in what he's doing. All right, so bring that down here. Maybe a little oil to loosen it up. Grab the color, cross over. And here's the thing, do these so often that no matter, like if you do one of these a day and your goal is to nail it, you'll begin to get better at color mixing and getting to things quicker, right? Because you're just kind of always analyzing data. And I think there's a lot of strength in that, because then you want to take it and then apply it to the things in which you're trying to do in your own work. So there's always a back and forth, just like we talked about the idea of a musician listening to music and then going in and then creating. And then it's why when you listen to authors, they're always reading, and therefore we should always be looking, and I find that a lot of the time I recommend everyone go to a museum all the time. I just went to one. But you should be actively looking at art. You'll know the marks of somebody, and then you'll begin to probably consciously or unconsciously make them or move towards that. This just a little bit higher chroma, a little bit more oil. And then over here, now we have this wedge of color, just to get a little bit more violet in there. And I think he has manganese violet on his palette. All right. Over here. So there's the, of course, active pursuit of creating the thing, and then there's the analyzing of it and it's a back and forth between the two. And I think again, that's a dialogue. I'm always between kind of two worlds on almost everything that I do. You know, analyzation, application. I encourage you all to do that as well. All right. Let's just get more. It's a little bit dirty there, the color. Just going to go over the top and just add a big thick glob. Get a little cleaner. Go. Not perfect, but not particularly caring all that much about it. All right, let's get a skin tone. It's in the orangish family. A little lighter. And then I think just, you know, and this surface is a little on the absorbent side, so I'm just going to get oil to move it. Now the arm is a little bit more darker right there, but I can get it a little closer by putting something down and then tapping it kind of towards the destination. Maybe that's a little darker as well. And then it's probably like his daughter. This is why it's like these are very personal things that we're doing for some people that are sharing their work with us. All right. Grab oil. Just pull this over. Not so linear. Maybe you want to put in the house. Maybe you don't. Suggested. All right, the background. That's blue. Feels like a little bit more towards violet. Let's get oil. Loosen it up. Yeah, that's still on the bluer side. So let's just go here. There we go. And just pull this over. You could fiddle with this all day, but what would be the essence of what he's trying to put, which is just that there's a block of blue, blue maybe leaning towards violet, and it connects to this down here. All right, back up in here. Again, that's a nice green. All right, and then over here, just a block. All right, and then notice the hair, how this comes right into it, and it's like one shape. And that's something to take away. Interesting. You put that in there for a reason. All right, running out of mixing area, but let's get this. That's actually lead. You can tell from the stringiness of it. Some of this in. There we go. what's that color right there? It's interesting. Right, then it pulls the blue in. So if something's on the palette, you serendipitously mix them. Maybe intentional, maybe not. See what that is. I always see it. See if like that's gonna be a better color. Other times I find that the color that I add that I don't think is there is actually closer to reality, meaning that we kind of overly simplify things, which I'm fine with, but the complexity of a color seems to be a bit more nuanced. Like we say, what is brown? Something like that, you know? And then it's like, well, it's much more than brown. And if we were to paint it and be a bit more neutral with the mixture, make it a little bit of white on there. If you did a little bit more neutral or nuanced it, it would feel more real. And I feel like that's why books like, you know, that I loathe, like what are recipes for wood, I just have no desire. If you find that stuff, you'll stop looking. And the whole point is to actively search and look and move with painting. There you go. So now it's kind of getting that luminous quality to it. I don't know. It just seems like it's boiling it down to some paint by number, and I think some people want it to be that easy. Completely different pursuit of what they're after than what we are after. And that's why maybe you got to find your people that, you know, of where they're trying to guide you. Violet. I think this can get a tiny bit more luminous and lighter down here. I'm often feeling like Soroya in some of these choices of color, where you're beginning to kind of tap it towards a pastel-y look. I think the American Impressionists, which is the lineage of Larson, kind of pull from that. They are in the R.H. Ives Gamble, Richard Lack kind of school, and he studied at what's his name? Richard Lack's atelier in Minnesota. So there's like, that's why he lives up there, you know. And it's interesting when you kind of begin to look at where you're from, and you know what people are teaching you and how they're influenced by the person and where they live. So there's that. So again, very color block here. Let's just take a risk. Go towards purple, violet. Then he pops this red to make it feel like there's diffuse transmission. And there, a little bit of diffuse transmission. I think his skin tones are a little on the chromatic side. That's not a judgment. That's just, we love the work. That's what it is. And to study it, maybe our takeaway is to add more chroma into our mixtures next time. All right. I'm going to take that and just run it up here. There's a passage that goes behind and down. Now the nuance of this is that, oh, let me get all the violet little bands of, you know, whatever. It's like, you know, if you had 20 minutes a day, do one of these. If you had 4 hours, maybe you want to do it. Get wrapped up in it. Get wrapped up in the study of it all, not just the painting. It's, as I said, it's a back and forth of a dialogue, in my opinion, between study and application, study and application, study and application. And when you're not sure about what to paint, then go study something. And when you are sure, still study something. And let the two always be in dialogue with each other. I think you'll find a lot of meaning and a connection to the people that you're looking at. A little violet, pull it back through. And then now that looks too dark. So let's just lighten it. Put wet into wet, I think helps. And that beautiful kind of pastel-y color space that I think he's operating in here. This is almost the value of the tone of the canvas. Just leave it. All right. Maybe a touch darker, lighter, and then this now feels less dark as I made it, or lighter than I made it. It's a bit on the light side. You can color block that if you even wanted to. Let's get a little tiny green. Black is actually nice for greens if you want low chroma. Kind of like acidic is what they're sometimes referred to as, that color. Beautiful like clothesline behind her. It's like, yeah, crazy. Sometimes I'm like, I didn't even see it, but there's a line. You can put that in by dabbing it this way if you want to. Great place to just try something. All right, and then down here. Blue, violet. Mix it together. Again, I always mix almost a lot of things towards the center. Kind of pull it in. And then, can you study your own work after and say, is there something in it, maybe that I brought to it, that, in the extraction of the study, have I brought something to it that I can learn from my own marks? It's a wonderful way to kind of be open always to whatever it is you're doing. All right, maybe one more touch here, just to go a tiny bit darker. Look on that face. Do you want to adjust? It's totally up to you. I don't want to get into details. It's not what this is about. I think the details are like where people all want to go, but I think look, if somebody's there, I think you should just refrain and do no detail in all your paintings for a long time. That's why these studies are fantastic, and that's why if you do them, you'll have a wonderful dialogue. Oh, wow, look at that. I missed another string.